can parents do?
Well, I think certainly our guests today have a suggestion on one way to accomplish this.
Absolutely. Teens experiencing a different culture and language would certainly be a great strategy. And we have two guests with us today, John Slocum and Beth Lieberman of Amerispan, and they're going to tell us how to make it happen. And then we're going to close with some stories about how these types of experiences benefited our families. John Slocum co-founded Amerispan Study Abroad almost 20 years ago. Since then, Amerispan has evolved from offering only 3 Spanish schools in Latin America to offering over 15 languages in more than 45 countries throughout the Americas, Europe, Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Beth Lieberman, prior to becoming vice president of Amerispan, joined the company as director of Amerispan Teenagers Programs. Beth and John shared a common affinity for teenagers programs, and their combined vision greatly expanded their teenager programs' reach and variety. And programs are now available in a variety of Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, French, German, Italian, Japanese, and Portuguese-speaking countries. All of their staff members have studied or lived abroad for extended periods of time. And since the early 1990s, they have helped more than 35,000 people study abroad. And for the 3rd time in a row, they have received the Language Travel Magazine's prestigious Star Award for Best Agency in North America. Well, welcome, John and Beth. We're really glad that you've joined us today. And this is a topic that's of great interest to me and to Richard because of the experiences that our own children have had. And we look forward to learning more about what's available now, mainly to high school students.
Yeah, and my first question for both of you is this idea of language immersion. I hear that being said a lot. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you define language immersion and how studying abroad really contributes to that.
Sure, I'd be happy to. This is John, and thank you so much, Jane and Richard, for having us on the show. Language immersion is the concept of being surrounded by the language 24/7. The idea is similar to the way a child learns any language. They hear it all the time, they see it all the time, and what we try and do is replicate that by going abroad. So you would go and learn the language in another country that speaks that language. And the way our programs generally work, and we have a variety of programs for all ages. We have teenager programs, which we're going to focus on today, college study abroad, programs for professionals, programs for independent travelers in a variety of languages and destinations. But the way our program generally works is you have some classes that are taught in your target language. You have some activities, cultural activities, fun activities, sports, and then you live and eat with a local family. So all day long, you're immersed in the language, and you really learn.
And that's one of the essential parts of living with the family that kind of makes it the total immersion, just not only the classroom setting, but then having a more casual setting of being with the family day to day, experiencing what they go through, their family interaction, their dinners and things like that, and having the opportunity more informally to practice the language.
And of course, that's just so much more than language. Then you're really learning the culture of the particular place you're in, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Well, you learn to communicate. And communicating, obviously, is much more than just knowing the grammar and the vocabulary. You have to understand the nuances and the way people think and the way people live, and it really accelerates the whole learning process.
So does this start when the student is in the States, or do they go to the country and then start?
They start upon arrival. So we highly recommend that people that go abroad have some basic skills, but you can participate in our programs with absolutely no language background to an advanced or superior level background. So what we recommend is that people know the numbers, know some of the simple vocabulary and phrases to get around, things like that, and that will help quite a bit. Obviously, if you've had a class or two in high school or in junior high or in college, that would help as well.
So a teenager is interested in going overseas to a particular country. What kind of programs do you have for them that they can choose from, and how does it all work?
Well, we basically have three general programs. We have summer camps, which are highly supervised. You live on campus. You have counselors. It's similar to, say, a summer camp here in the U.S. or an away camp. So all of your time is accounted for. There's not any unsupervised time. The second group of programs we have are junior immersion programs. Those programs have some supervision. You have a curfew. You have things that you can do and not do, but you'll be making your own way between the host family and where you're going to take your classes. You'll have some free time in the evening after dinner or in the afternoon before dinner. So there's a little bit of unsupervised time, but it's still supervised to an extent. And then our last program that we offer for teenagers is what we call our independent teenager programs. And these are basically programs where you're participating with other adults. So they're the programs that allow people that are under 18 to still join in to an adult class. They're very unsupervised, and it's for the student that has some travel experience, international travel experience, that's very responsible, that's traveled, and 16 to 18-year-olds, where the other programs that we offer will accept people from 13 to 18.
So I guess for a parent making that decision, you would both look at, obviously, the chronological age of your child, how much experience they might have had, and, of course, their emotional maturity. I imagine that would be all the factors that a parent would look at before considering a type of program. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Very important.
One of the things that I would like to add here is we do have families that travel together. A mother that travels with her boy or a couple of sisters, siblings. If there's a 16 to 18-year-old and a parent or an older sibling, you could study at the independent program together. Or we have a number of schools where we have an adult program and in the same town a summer camp or a junior immersion. So we do have families. They may live together. They may not live together. Those are all questions that they can answer. Basically, we offer whatever they want. So a mother and father can go with their kids, take some adult classes while their child is participating in a summer camp or a junior immersion program.
I found that wonderfully intriguing because many of the times as a parenting coach and as a former educator, parents always ask me, how do you encourage your child to learn? And the first thing I said is being a good model, learn yourself. And the more you're learning and participating, you're giving value and you're showing your children how important it is. And what you just described, it just sounds like a great way of motivating a young person by watching their parents and the two of them kind of doing their homework together. Sounds like really a fun and a great motivating experience.
Oh, it is. Even if you're at a restaurant and your dad doesn't know what the name of something is, and it really gives that encouragement to the child.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I know, this might be asking you, preaching to the choir, and I think we believe it, but I think for folks in general, maybe you could really break down and really tell us how you see the benefits to a teenager in having this kind of overseas experience.
Well, I think there's probably three main things. The first is obviously growing as an individual. You develop interpersonal skills. You develop a sense of responsibility of taking care of yourself. You're introduced to cross-cultural awareness, more knowledge of the world, etc. The second is you obtain a standout skill. And what we know these days is it's tough to get into good colleges. There's a lot of competition. So when you're applying, you really want that standout skill. And when you have somebody that says, I participated on a program in Costa Rica and we visited this and I learned the language and we volunteered at an orphanage in the afternoon 3 days a week, you really bring in a skill that a lot of the other applicants don't have, and you stand out. And then the final one is a way to get credit. You can get college credit or place out of certain classes once you do get into college, whether you're going to take a CLEP exam or if you finished your studies and you're between your senior year in high school and starting college, you can get credit from Brookhaven College or a number of different community colleges. So I would say those are probably the three broad things that you're going to benefit from.
I agree. Knowing what my children experienced when they went overseas, it really made a significant difference in their lives and on their applications for going to college. But I also, as a parent, was always very concerned about their safety being in another country. How can we address that?
Well, Jane, I mean, we consider all of our teen programs and the locations that we offer to be in stable and safe locations and countries. Depending on the program, the on-site staff supervises the student most or all of the time from really arrival to departure. We go to great lengths to ensure the safety of all teens, most especially in our independent programs. But it's also important that parents have a dialogue with their teens about where they're traveling and using common sense, such as not walking alone at night, protecting their valuables. We always recommend to parents to almost treat it like their child's day-to-day life would take place in a big city, kind of using those everyday common senses.
And I think you could also have kind of go over some what-if scenarios with your child, too. Mm-hmm. If this happens, what are you going to do? So that everything isn't a shock. So if there's a problem and their flight is delayed in the connecting or whatever the case may be, they already know exactly what they should do. They should call this person or they should call that person or they should talk to this person and don't panic. Because quite frankly, when you travel, whether it's domestically or internationally, there's always going to be some hiccups. And those hiccups and the way you react to them and get through them, I think it really helps grow the child as an individual and their responsibility and builds their own self-confidence in being able to deal with these. And, of course, all those hiccups always make great stories later on.
You're right on. And we certainly talk a lot about our youth growing up today and are they developing sufficient resilience. And I think you're right. The only way you build resilience is to have some hiccups, to overcome them, deal with them, and possibly feel good that you got through it and tell a good story afterwards. Mm-hmm. I really agree with you. Do you do a lot of preparation for the parents? I mean, all the scenarios that you just mentioned, is there a kind of an orientation for parents before so you alleviate them of these kinds of concerns? And I imagine today we talk a lot about the helicopter parent, and we know parents tend to be maybe a little hyper involved with some of their kids. So I'm apparently over the years that you've been doing it, I'm sure you've noticed that the intensity of parents monitoring has possibly become a little bit more intense.
Absolutely. Given that our program participants come from all over the United States and even all over the world, having a face-to-face orientation, if you will, with Amerispan, unfortunately is not something that we can do. That being said, certainly our study abroad consultants, and most specifically our director of teenager programs, is always available to speak to parents over the phone. That's where most of the dialogue occurs, and to answer their questions. And every parent is different. Some have 5 questions to some a list of 20, and they want to know and go over every scenario. And we do try to prepare parents to the best of our ability. Expectations for not only them as the parents, but also expectations that they need to talk to their son or daughter about when they're in country.
This is the conclusion of part 1. Please click on the link to continue the interview.